One of the most profound things I've learned in my life is that it's actually not about my hair at all. I've spent a lifetime trying to cover up who I am. And as much as I love a good external transformation, and I do, I much more love a heart transformation. Join me as I share how I work to heal my heart, find happiness, and embrace our hair. Hey guys, welcome back to It's Not About Your Hair, where we talk all things hair, heart, and happiness. I want to say thank you for any of you who have been patient, as it's been about a month since I put out an episode. There was so many things that went on in my family, a lot of loss and a lot of sadness, and that took me out of my rhythm of the podcast, made me question a lot of things and just take a step back. So I appreciate all of you patiently waiting. And it took me a little bit of time, if I'm honest, to discover what I was doing. Why am I doing this podcast? What is this all about? So much of the life that we live in today is self-focused. And even if you don't post a lot on social media, if you are on social media, you are self-focused. And that's just the truth, right? So I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't ever post anything, but they're scrolling the internet all the time. So if that's you, maybe you're not as visually out there as someone like me who has all the social media platforms and a YouTube channel, podcast. But we are definitely in the navel-gazing era of history. You know, we are consumed with Pinterest boards and creating and cultivating a life that looks good on camera. And I'm part of that. For Pete's sake, it's my life, right? I stand in front of a mirror for my day job. So I'm sure that if you're following me, you know by day, I'm Voss the Curl Boss, creating curl magic one person at a time. And then this is what I do. You know, it all came out of this idea that it's more than hair, which is why this podcast is called It's Not About Your Hair. I literally believe that hair in some shape or fashion is my mission field. It's how I have healed my own self-image, or am working to heal my own self-image. It's how I help clients behind my chair. And it is what I believe is the reason that I post on social media excessively and why I have a podcast. So all of that to say, through loss, I have discovered for myself that it does matter. It seems silly to make posts and videos about hair content or to have a podcast where I ramble on about much of nothing, topics of everyday life. But what I've realized in the last few months is that everybody goes through life differently, right? We know that already. We've been talking about that. But especially in hard times, different people show up different ways. And a lot of people choose to go it alone. And even more so have I recognized the importance of creating a space that maybe you don't feel alone today. Maybe you don't have people in your life who tell you that you are worthy of love. Maybe you don't have somebody say, today's the day to get up off of the couch and do something spectacular. That could be brushing your teeth if you haven't done that for a while. It could be going and helping someone else. It could be choosing to believe that your life matters, right? And if there aren't people filling up spaces, so you might not leave your house, but maybe you're on your phone. Maybe you're seeing this clip sitting on your sofa. Maybe you aren't loving your job and you hate everybody around you, but maybe you scroll past this on your Facebook and you stop for just a second. And if you do, maybe you heard me say that you are worthy of love, and maybe you're like, she's so stupid. How does she even know? I know, because I know me, and I know that if I am worthy of love, then you are. And so I'm back, you guys. I'm back because I believe that every single interaction we have as human beings has significance. We just watched the movie Cabri, Calabri. I don't know. I messed it up last night about this true story about this nun who was an Italian immigrant female who lived in the early 1900s when the foundation of America was not inclusive to anyone, even though most people were, everyone was an immigrant except for the Native Americans. I mean, it's just such a weird, we are so weird. The human race, in all of us, no matter what country you go to, I'm sure that each of them have their own traditions and prejudices. But I hope that we're progressing far enough past these things to see that the color of your skin, your financial status, your gender does not define whether or not you are worthy of love. If you have a goddamn heart and you have air in your lungs, then you are on this planet for a purpose, okay? Stop being a tool bag. And so this story was so amazing. And the idea that a woman who had no man except for Jesus could change the world in the way that she did. And she was, given you have to go watch it. You have to watch it, whether you're a person of faith or not. If you're a human being who's lived on the planet and ever felt like you didn't fit in or you didn't belong, but there was something deeper inside of you that said, what if you did? Oh, that movie will give you some hope. In the power of one person's life to radically change the life of so many people. I was crying just during the trailer of that movie, you guys. And my Sadie kept reaching over and grabbing my hand because I was crying through the whole thing because I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm so emotional. Yes, I do. I'm always emotional. But I think the idea that we limit ourselves when we are limitless. She had a lung condition and they gave her, I don't know, 3 years to live. I'm not going to give the whole thing away, but they gave her 3 years to live. And most people who are unwell, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually, stop living. That's what I've seen. And when you stop living, you give into it. And that was one thing she said. The pulpit asked her, well, many would say you're unwell. How would you be able to do all these things that you say you're going to do if you're sick? And I'm summarizing because I don't remember verbatim, but she said something like, either I can worship my sickness or either I can pursue my sickness or I can pursue my purpose. And she went for a purpose, and you guys, her sickness still existed, but what she was able to do, not focusing on her illness. And that was just so beautiful for me. And that leads me into my father-in-law recently passed away. And if you want to know about someone whose life was really amazing, if you go on YouTube right now and you type in EIOBS, the Gene Riley story, one of the missionaries from their church came back home to make a documentary on the life of my father-in-law because he thought he had such an incredible life, and he did. In the last 4 years, maybe, my father-in-law had been diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis, which is a lung condition which continues to harden your lungs, basically taking away your ability to breathe. And my father-in-law was 86, but at 75, he was still working full time. He was the most energetic person you've ever met in your life. He was so full of life and joy and purpose, and he loved to care for my mother-in-law. I never seen anything like it, you guys. Well, I have, because my goodness, I'm a crybaby today. Because my husband learned that from his stepdad. And he loves me like that. Like, just really loves. My father-in-law loves my mother-in-law so much that one year for her birthday, I got her 2 cards because he couldn't decide which one he liked more to describe her. Anyways, at 75, the man's still working full time, still remodeling their house, still whatever they dreamed of doing, he did. And in the meantime, he never missed any of my kids' stuff. And he ended up having to have a hip replacement, and they told him he'd have to take 6 months off of work. He was back to work in 6 weeks, you guys. Really, really an incredible man. In the last few years of his life, if you watch the documentary, you'll see he wrote a book called Free Range. And it is also, someday you guys are going to be able to pick up that book. It's not published yet, but it will be. And it shares the life and legacy of someone who lived through so many different changes in our history. He was born in 1938 and lived in a time where most people didn't own a car, on a farm in a one-room schoolhouse all the way into the present day. And he lost so much in the last 4 years from what I would see, right? From my lens. As pulmonary fibrosis took over, my father-in-law was able to do less and less. And he couldn't breathe. And what got put on oxygen at first, just when he needed it, which he needed it more, but he was stubborn. And so in the beginning, he wouldn't use it until he couldn't handle it. And towards the end of his life, he was on 16 units of oxygen full time, 2 full oxygen concentrators, and struggled for breath, and was stuck at home because you can't take those. For the last year of his life, he was stuck at home. And I'm telling you guys this story because it reminded me of that movie I watched last night, and it reminded me of purpose. So in the last year of his life, he couldn't leave. And at first it was really hard for him and my mother-in-law, because you take someone who, at most 75-year-olds just are already sitting at home on the couch. I mean, some of you are plenty capable of getting off the couch and you're still on it. But he just didn't do that. He didn't live that life. And but when he did, at first it was really hard, because all he ever wanted to do was care for my mother-in-law and work hard. I mean, he did. And when those few things were taken from him, which seems like everything, he was completely homebound. It was still the most joyful place to enter. When you walked in the door, no matter what time of day it was, you'd hear, "Yo, yo, welcome, welcome." He'd yell from his chair. You'd walk around the corner and he'd say, "You're here, you're here." So excited to see you, no matter who you were. He made everyone feel that way. And he transported you, even though he was stuck in his chair. He transported you through his stories and joy of his life. He could take you to one of those places, or through his ability to listen to you and your stuff, he could make you feel seen and loved. And that movie, she started all these orphanages with, how do we live in a world where we don't see people that are hurting? And my father-in-law, even though he was quote unquote dying, as we all are, every day we're alive, we're getting closer to death, y'all. But some of us realize it and some of us don't. He always made everybody else feel special and important. And like he had all the time in the world to listen. And sometimes I would go over there and lament about my own problems, and he would listen and tell me and give me advice. And he let other people talk about their problems. And he taught us all how to play cards. And he never lost his sense of humor. And every Wednesday, my kids went over there for dinner with their grandparents, which I think is so special. And at one point in his younger years, I'm going to say his mid to late 70s, he built the most amazing treehouse in their backyard that overlooks the river for his grandkids. Well, he said for his grandkids, but he slept out in it a lot when he was well, because I think he built it for himself. But his life was infectious. I talked about this before, contagious, full of joy. And he lived out his purpose, even when he couldn't live out of his house, even when he couldn't walk, even when he couldn't get up to make his own goddamn dinner. He was joyful and thankful and told the funniest jokes and made other people feel important. And that's what I want to do. That is what I want to do with my life. And I lose focus of that sometimes because I live in a world that is me-centered, right? We all do. If I get enough posts for the goddamn algorithms on TikTok, if I make sure that I don't miss an appointment with a client, if I get my clothes washed and look just right and share my thrifts of the day, and they're all silly. But what if they're important too? What if just showing joy to other people is important? And I do love the one-on-one, you guys. I'm thankful for the clients who sit in my chair that have maybe been following me for a year or two on social media, and they already feel like they know me because of these times together, whether they watch the podcast or tuned into my social media. And sometimes I get off and think, this is so stupid, just sharing trivial things about my wash day. But they're not, because they're interactions with other humans. And they're reminders that we're alive. And that's my topic for today. Be alive and be well until you cannot be. And don't focus on whatever it is that, I don't want to say that you're going through, because sometimes we have to focus on what we're going through to get through it, right? But I had a client recently that her daughter was diagnosed with cancer, and she said that her daughter refused to say, she said, I don't want to be identified as having cancer. It's not who I am, it's something I have. And you, my friend, are not whatever you're going through right now. It's something you're going through. And if you're sick, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually, please do not stop in the identification of your illness. Please know that if you still can breathe and have life, you have purpose, and you're valuable, and you are needed. And what would happen if we all just kept showing up? And some days you get up, and what if it's just for somebody else? What if you don't feel like getting up, but you do it anyways, and you bump into that person, and you're looking for those opportunities to be a light to somebody else? And what if it happens? What if it's that one interaction? What if this podcast today, you guys, just touches one person that didn't know that they were worthy of love? And it maybe bumps into them enough that they believe it. If you're listening to this podcast and not watching it, and you need someone to look at you, head over to my YouTube channel right now and look at me. Please. You are worthy of love. Your life is worth living. And any amount of sadness that you're feeling, please know that you will get through it. You need people, though. You really do. I'm here, okay? But I'm through a screen. Maybe you know me in real life. You can reach out to me. But you need community. You need people to walk alongside you. You need to not be alone. Isolation is the attack of the enemy. In that movie, one of the ladies said to the mother, the nun, I can't remember. You need to rest. And she said, when I rest, I feel like I'm closer to death. But when I'm working and loving, I am living. Today, I hope that you choose to live, no matter what you're going through. And that doesn't mean that I don't see it as hard, because it's okay for it to be hard. Today is Easter Sunday when I'm recording this, because I was so just warm inside about the love of Christ in you. I was thinking about you, whoever you are. And it made me so touched. And I wanted to share this because I've been off the grid with the podcast, and I wanted to come back. And I wanted today, as I live out my purpose, which is to show up authentically as myself and to let you know that you are worthy of love, and to say, get off the couch. And if you can't get off the couch like my father-in-law, if you're stuck at home, invite somebody in. And do your best to be kind. Stop blaming other people for where you're at. It doesn't help you. Let the bitterness fall away. And let the healing begin. The one thing that I know for sure is that we'll all be born, if you're here, and that we're all going to leave this earth at some point. Some of us at a fullness of what we think life should be, 80, 90 years old. Some of us at 6 or 7, and some somewhere in the middle. For me, I believe that that was the fullness of your life. God dang it. Use your freaking life to be a light, to bring joy no matter where you're at, to tell someone that they're lovable, okay? So I'm glad you tuned in today. It feels good to be back. I missed you guys. And I think I missed myself. I missed these opportunities because I'm an external processor to talk out loud and to share my heart. So thanks for listening. Of course, you are magnificent. I hope you know that if you're not doing fine, that you're going to be okay. And that all you have to do is your best today. I love you. I think you're pretty neat. And God loves you too. I guess this is where I ask you to subscribe to my channel, to follow me on social, and to listen wherever podcasts can be found. And join me every Tuesday at 2 as we unpack how to heal your hair, your heart, and your happiness.